welcome back to Born to Cook. This evening we are going to be making chicken Fra Diavolo in the crock pot. So as you can see, I have 2 jars, which I'll show you, of Fra Diavolo sauce, which you can get at your regular market, hopefully. And then I have 3 decent sized chicken breasts. I tend to think 1.5 chicken breasts for each person eating the meal, hence the 3 because it's just me and Joe. I also have my big blue bowl. That's what I season my chicken in. Of course, the chicken. And then I have olive oil, some fresh ground black pepper, salt, of course, some garlic powder, and then some basil, dried basil, and then some sugar for the actual sauce, just because I find it gets a little bitter otherwise. And then I trim out my chicken. I've already rinsed it. It's still partially frozen, which I prefer because I think it makes it a little bit easier to cut. I do have an issue with chicken. I don't really eat meat on bone, so I usually just eat chicken breast. And I have a tendency of cutting off the fat, and then if I, God forbid, see a vein or a red mark, you'll see I kind of dig in and get that out too. I don't know why, but well, I do. Well, I have issues, but I do like to dig that all out. Just it makes me feel better. And again, the chicken is rinsed, and then of course any of the scraps or the fat or the veins I throw in a bag, an individual bag usually, so I can tie it up before I throw it into the trash. Just because it'll stink real fast if you're not taking out your trash that night. So I'm cutting the chicken into slightly bigger than bite-sized chunks, just because the chicken does tend to shrink down a little bit and it will fall apart by the time it's done cooking. So I like to try to get it in a little bit bigger. That way there is more texture to it. Not that it's going to shred. So just cutting up the 3, like I said, 1.5 chicken breasts for each of us. Not that we're going to eat that all in one sitting. We probably could, but I like to pack up the leftovers for lunches for both of us the next day, or even if it's a weekend, we can have it for dinner the next night. So anyway, the chicken is all going to go into the big blue bowl, just so that I can season it. One of my other little mysteries is I don't like to season things individually so much. Yes, I have washed my hands after touching the chicken. I'm adding some salt to the bowl. Not too much. I just like to get the tips of my fingers in. And then some freshly ground black pepper. Everyone has a preference on that. I give it quite a few twirls because Joe and I both like things with a little bit of heat to it, hence the Fra Diavolo sauce. And then I'm getting I think a half teaspoon for the garlic powder. And I try to spread that over pretty evenly because I fear someone biting into something that I made and there's like a big clunk of garlic or a big clunk of salt. That's why I usually don't mix things in the crock pot, because I'm afraid that if there's some kind of liquid that it's just going to surround it and it's going to be a ball of some kind of herb, and that's just not what you want. So it's another half teaspoon of some dried basil sprinkled all over. There you go. I should be having my tongs. There we go. And we're going to toss that all around. Make sure it's trying to coat all of the chicken. But it will, of course, mend its ways in the crock pot, and everything will get flavored pretty evenly. So here I have my crock pot. It's a large capacity. I like to spray mine with olive oil or drizzle mine with olive oil, just because I feel like the sprays, like the nonstick sprays, after a while of using them, no matter how much you clean them, there's a film, like a residue on the inside, and that bothers me. It's something I just can't get to come clean, and it's after many uses of it, but I'm trying not to use the bags because of the plastic, so the olive oil seems to be working best for me. And I just wipe it around with a paper towel, and then add the chicken, clearly. There you go. And you can see there's not a lot of olive oil. It's not like pooling up anywhere. And then these are the 2 bottles of the Fra Diavolo sauce we get our local market. It is Fra Diavolo, which means that it's spicy. Again, this is a preference that Joe and I both have. I add 2 bottles just because we love sauce. Like, nothing can be dry. So 2 bottles for the both of us are pretty good, especially when there's leftovers. Now here you can see I'm adding sugar, and I know a lot of people have a problem with sugar going into any tomato-based product, but I add a tablespoon per jar when I use jar, just because tomatoes are bitter and they're very acidic, and you need something to kind of cut that down. So don't be ashamed. Don't let anyone shame you for putting sugar in your gravy or your sauce, because it really does have a benefit. And it helps out. And it also helps with if you have acid reflux or GERD, it'll cut that acidity so you won't get the burns later on. Okay, so here's where you're going to see I'm a child genius. Get ready to put on your Proud Pants. I'm putting my Crockpot liner in my Crockpot in the base. And I'm showing my husband, I have to set the program. And I go through the whole thing. Start it. We're going to put it on high. How come the cooking time's not going down? I'm hitting the little down arrow. There we go. Get all the way down to 4 hours. She's there. And then what do? I shut it off. So we're going to start this over again. And we're still not going to get it quite right. We're still on high. Still in the cooking time. It should be about 4 hours. So this isn't something you're going to want to make when you have an 8-hour shift at work. This is like more of a weekend running errands or just doing housework kind of meal. Because you're going to want to keep an eye on it. It does fine by its own, but my crock pot seems to run a little bit higher temperature than my old one. So this was actually done early. You can see it was about, 3 hours, and the chicken was falling apart. You could just kind of press it into the wall of the crock pot, and it was nice and tender. So we gave it a nice stir, just throughout all the cooking time so nothing burned on the sides or the bottom. That'll wreck it, clearly. And then from that point, I put on my pasta. Once I know everything's good, I'll usually put the crock pot on low or on warm, and then bring the water for the pasta of your choice up to a boil. Please add your pasta to a rolling boil pot of water and not cold. That is such a pet peeve of mine. And we add plenty of pasta, obviously. And then make sure you give it a nice stir so that the pasta doesn't stick. And then we also usually season our water before I put the pasta in. But like I said, I'm a child genius. I totally forgot until my husband reminded me. So you want to add enough salt to flavor it. Get that pasta really soaking in that salty water. And then I think the package instructions for this were 8 to 10 minutes, I believe. But I'm not patient, so I usually give it a couple minutes and then I take a strand and test it. And clearly here it wasn't done just by looking at it. So we had to give it a little bit more time. You can see over on the side I've cooked some garlic bread. So I'll show you a little trick that I do. I'm sure I'm not splitting atoms here. I'm sure many people have thought of this, but for a child in my for a time when I was a teenager, I worked at an Italian restaurant, and one of our side duties were to make croutons, and we always made it with leftover garlic bread at the end of the night. So I did toast up a whole garlic bread, but I took half of it and then put it into large chunks just to add to the salad. It gives a little something fresh. It's crunchy on the outside and then usually pretty tender on the inside, obviously. But if you don't, if you make too many, you can just put them in a Ziploc bag once they're nice and cool and save them for a salad the next day. So this is a salad. It's just romaine and iceberg with cherry tomatoes, some sweet peppers, cucumbers, which you can see I have on the side so I could eat them while I was cooking, and then a little bit of the Newman's Own creamy Caesar dressing, which we like, And then usually I just eat the croutons off the salad first and then eventually get down to the actual vegetables. But there's a carb, so I'm going to eat it. So that's our beautiful salad. There you go. Oh, and I think I have sunflower seeds on there too, which is one of my favorites. You can see not all the cucumbers made it to the salad. So now the pasta's ready. It's boiled. It's nice and soft but not mushy. And then I'm going to slowly get my big head out of the way and drain the pasta. I usually drain it very slow at first to get all of the water out, and then let the pasta fall through because I've splashed myself a million times and it hurts. So there we go. Some nice ribbons of, I think it's thin fettuccine that I used. Just shake off all that excess water. Be careful, don't burn yourself. And then I add it back to the pot that it was cooking in, but most importantly, I like to add some of the sauce to the pasta. I know some people think that's sacrilegious, but it helps to prevent the pasta from sticking to itself when you're actually away from the pot and eating your dinner. Like I said, we pack up the leftovers for lunch, so if I can add a couple of ladles of the sauce to the pasta when I come back to clean up and pack up the extras, I don't have to fight with the pasta. It's not like one big ball, whereas if I just left it like that, it would dry out and get kind of gluey. So I mix it in. I think I did 3 ladles of sauce, and then just mix it in and get ready to serve it up. Ignore my winter socks. We're in the East Coast and it was cold. So there you can see the little pieces of the tomato from the sauce are in there, which I love. I love that I can't get the center of the dish either. She's gifted. And then, of course, a nice healthy supply of the chicken. And then more sauce, because clearly that's why you make garlic bread, is to sop that all up. At least in my family. You have to have carbs upon carbs. Alright, and there's the shredded Parmesan cheese. Again, I can't find my grater to actually do it myself. We recently moved and some things are still in storage. And then there's that delicious salad that I will gladly eat the croutons right off of. And that's dinner. That is chicken Fra Diavolo made in the Crockpot. Fresh pasta. By fresh, I mean fresh out of the box. And then a nice salad with a little sliver of garlic bread. So don't forget, if you like these little tutorials, hit the like or the subscribe button. Also the bell icon to get notified if I make another video.